We're here with Brad Hams, one of our general session speakers from MFG 2012 in Orlando, Florida. How are you today, Brad?
Great. Thanks for having me.
So I understand your presentation topic was about ending entitlement mentality. Can you tell us what that is?
Sure. My company, Ownership Thinking, is basically a consulting and training firm. And the underlying theme, the work that we do, is really about engaging all of your employees in your organization, not just in the tasks, but really in the financial side of the business, and really creating an organization of employees who think and act like owners. The entitlement is sort of an underlying theme in everything that I do, and it has been most of my adult life. You know, entitlement has become a very pervasive mentality in our culture over the last several generations, and I think in part due to this self-esteem movement where everybody has to be a winner and so on, right? But the bottom line is I think there's, over the years, and we've raised our children this way, people have a warped idea now of the relationship between the contribution that they make versus the compensation that they make. And so they want more than they give. And that doesn't work very well in a business environment. And so this is really about sort of shaking people out of that entitlement mentality. And by the way, people are drawn to entitlement and dependence because it's easy, frankly. Well, they think it's easy. But as I said, in entitlement, they become dependent. And that really crushes potential. People, frankly, are unhappy in that environment because they're not purposeful. Mm-hmm. And so, again, we're drawn to it, but they're not happy there. So we really want to shake people out of that in a business environment and require them to participate in the business. And they may go, you know, kicking and screaming a little bit at the beginning, but people are happier there. And, you know, one of the ways that that plays out is that companies that practice ownership thinking retain employees at a 200% better rate than companies that don't. And they perform much better from a financial perspective, too.
Now, I understand you have a book. What can you tell us about that?
I do. Thanks for asking. It's called Ownership Thinking. Subtitle is How to End Entitlement and Create a Culture of Accountability, Purpose, and Profit. It was released by McGraw-Hill in September of last year, and it's doing really well internationally. In fact, we were number 25 in all books on Amazon last week. How cool is that?
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right, so what can companies do to eliminate this mentality?
Well, if we really want to engage our employees and shake them out of this mentality, as you say, we have to do three things, and I talk about this in detail in the book. First thing we need to do is to educate them about business. They need to have a fundamental understanding of business and finance and how companies work, how they make money. If we don't teach them these things, they make assumptions. For example, when I ask employees that are unfamiliar with business what percentage of revenue is profit, the average answer I get is 35 to 50%. If you can imagine, I've worked with 1,600 companies in 16 years. I've never had a client that had a 50% profit. So 5% is more typical. So we have to educate them, otherwise they make assumptions. The second thing we do is we start measuring the right things. Most organizations focus all their attention on lagging financial measures, which they see on their financial statements. If we really want to engage our employees, we need to get away from that because there's no connection there between those financials and what they're doing. So what we encourage companies to do is to focus more on leading activity-based measures, like rework, for example, in a manufacturing environment, and build scoreboards around those, and then teach people to begin forecasting results on a regular, formal basis. This creates an environment of very high visibility, which in turn creates high accountability, and of course it's a great learning tool as well. Now the last thing we talk about in the book and in our process, in doing these first two things, you will drive the financial performance of your company. And we literally guarantee that. There's so much money falling through the cracks in companies, it's just crazy. And so in doing these first two things, we've found a pot of money, if you will, that we didn't have before. And now we can create broad-based incentive plans that are self-funded, because we found the money to fund them. And that's a very important thing to remember about incentives, excuse me, is they have to pay for themselves. If you create an incentive plan that doesn't pay for itself, you've done two things. You've created an expense, of course, but you've also created entitlement, or somebody the other day said welfare. And that's kind of what you've done. So in doing these first two things, educating employees, engaging them in the financial performance of the business, we drive our financial performance, and now we can have an incentive because it's self-funded.
Now, where did you personally get inspiration to, first of all, learn about this topic, but then also go around and present about it?
Well, I'm very passionate about it, as you might see, because of this underlying theme. Well, I have an unusual background. Prior to 1990, most of my career was in finance. I had leadership roles at PepsiCo, Mrs. Fields Cookies, among others. But I have an education. I have graduate degrees in human resources and organization development. So I got the finance side and the people side. So you squish those together and you kind of have ownership thinking. Now, I started consulting in 1990, and my first client of any substance was Mrs. Fields Cookies. And I helped them with their international development for a couple of years, about half of my time, and ended up as the president of Mrs. Fields Cookies for the country of Mexico. And that's where I developed this methodology at first. And I won't go into all the details here, but there's some underlying themes going on in Mexico that just led us down this path. And we had great success with it there. And while I was there, seeing how incredible, how powerful this was, we spent some time creating a model, we meaning myself and my leadership team, one of whom is now my wife, by the way, Carmen Garcia Hams. We created this model that we were sure we could replicate in other industries. And I moved back to the United States in 95, and we started this company, Ownership Thinking. So over the last 16, 17 years, we've been consulting on this. And I'm very passionate about this mission, so I've always loved speaking. Over the last 10 years, I've spoken to, I don't know how many groups, 700, 800 groups, but mostly smaller CEO groups. With the book coming out, there's just been an outpouring of interest in this. And so I'm really focusing my attention now on larger keynotes like I did here today.
Well, thanks so much for being here, Brad.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's a great conference. You guys do a great job.
Thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you.
This has been Penny Brown with IMTSTV.
The best way to plan your visit to IMTS 2012 is to first visit IMTS.com. It's the optimum way to make the most of your stay, driving you to all the advanced technology and processes you've come to see. The new features at IMTS.com include an interactive exhibitor directory and floor plan to easily pinpoint exhibitor locations. The IMTS.com online exhibitor showrooms have complete information on each of the 1,200 exhibitors. Customize your IMTS itinerary with the My Show floor plan. Here you can create a custom list of companies that are exhibiting at IMTS 2012. Make notes on those exhibitors and print a highlighted floor plan to help you make the most of your time at IMTS. Plus, your agenda will also be accessible on kiosks throughout the show. The international section has everything on visas, registration, and representative offices around the world. Add IMTS to your Outlook calendar, arrange your visit through Trip Assistance, and pre-plan your tour through My Show. IMTS.com is your ticket to a more efficiently planned, more enjoyable visit to IMTS 2012. Be there.